Hello and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Skye. I hope you're doing well wherever you are, whatever you're doing. I hope you can find little moments of joy in the day or the moment you're in currently. Um, yeah. So today's podcast episode is all about that we don't have to constantly be trying our best, and almost if we are, it's a downside and it's a disadvantage to ourselves and the people we're around. And I think we kind of are getting pushed and told so many different things of like, as long as you're trying your best all the time, then that's fine. That's enough because you're always trying your best. But then you've got the other side of like, oh, like try your best, but your best has to be good enough. Like your best isn't enough. There has to be something greater than that. And then you've got people who you're like, oh, you're being lazy if you don't even try your best and all these things. And I think I've definitely probably more, if any of those, fallen into the category of like, try your best, and as long as you're trying your best, that's enough. And I was thinking about it the other day, and I was just like, I've had a very busy a very busy month, a very cute, like it's been so amazing, it's been so gorgeous, and I genuinely had the time of my life. But it doesn't take away from being busy. So other things have had to take a little bit of they haven't been on my highest importance. Does that make sense? Um, Not to say that they're not important to me, but they just haven't been on the top of the priority list. And I thought, oh, okay, because like I've been trying to finish this book that I've been reading, and it's been important to me to read, but realistically, of all the things I've been doing, it's not on my top priority. And I thought, I suppose you could say I've been doing my best with it, but would be doing my best mean actually turning my phone off 10 minutes early and trying to get in 5 pages? I don't know. And I thought, I suppose that would be my best because I could do that. But if I was doing that, that would exhaust me. And I was thinking, does trying your best mean burning yourself out? And I think there is a fine line, but I think does anyone actually know that fine line of like trying your best and burning yourself out? And in society, are we telling ourselves that burnout is trying our best? Because I think it kind of is in some ways. And I'm not saying everyone thinks this, but I kind of learned about myself that I didn't know the fine line between burnout and trying your best. I thought that maybe almost goes hand in hand. And then I kind of came to the conclusion of like, trying your best isn't always a good thing. And I guess the title of the podcast, you don't always need to be trying your best, or you shouldn't always try your best. I don't actually know what I'm going to name it yet. But if I do end up naming it, it's probably going to be controversial because I was speaking to my sister about it, and she was like, I don't really like that name. And I was like, I suppose so, but realistically, that is what it is. Like, you don't always need to be trying your best, and sometimes trying your best is a genuine disservice to you. And even if you feel selfish saying it's just for you, it's a disservice for the people around you because I think if we're always trying our best, it's kind of like, okay, what's an example? It's literally like, okay, so as humans, we need to sleep like for 8 hours every day. If we do not, we're going to get so run down, we're not going to be able to function properly, we won't be able to think properly, and our functions, our like human bodily functions, will start failing. Does that make sense? By almost trying your best all the time and not letting yourself, quote unquote, rest mentally and physically, you're going to start declining and you're going to start having function issues. Does that make sense? And I think I've realized that because I get suppose, when people say burnt out, like I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but like not necessarily burnout, just like being exhausted. And I think a lot of people experience that. And I'm not saying almost sometimes trying your best is a non-negotiable and you have to, like in your job or whatever. But in times and places in our own lives and only things that affect us, when we do get to choose to the extent of how much effort we put into it, and we're always constantly trying to reach the 100%, it is okay not to, and it's okay to some days be like, I can give 5% right now. And then I know there's a thing of like, oh, if you're giving 5% today, bear in mind that is your absolute best. Like I remember there was like a TikTok trend, and it was like, oh, some days you have 100% to give, and some days you give 5% to give, but that 5% is still your 100% because that's all you've got to give. But I almost mean on the days you have 100% and you only give 2% to some things, that is absolutely fine. And I kind of think we've almost been in all these like all these things I've seen where it's like, oh, even on the days you're giving 5%, you're still giving your 100%. We do not need to be giving 100%. Realistically, to anything, we need to choose and be not necessarily, we need to be choosing what we put our energy to because it's our own lives. And I think it's so normal to give your all to everything, and it can become so draining. And I think it's almost things as little as like going on a walk. Like, I'll try and go for the absolute best walk, you know what I mean? Like, I went on a walk the other day and it was actually like, I was like, oh, there's no point if I literally just go around. I was like, it was raining, it's chucking it down, and I was like, oh, you know what, like, all my clothes are gonna get wet, I might as well go on a longer walk. And I was just like really getting in my head about it. I was like, I'm just going to give my 2% today. I end up just sitting out in the garden for 2 minutes because I thought, you know what, I'm getting fresh air. And I gave like, what, 10% into that. And I probably did have 100% within me. But I just chose to give a bit less in that. And I think when I say don't give your all to everything, I think with a job, you can't really decide how much you give to it because that's your job, you know what I mean? Or when you're at school or whatever, but things that are personal towards yourself. But I think also, I don't want anyone to listen to this and think, oh, I don't need to prioritize myself. It's just about things where we can negotiate with ourselves. Or if we're meeting up with a friend and you actually think, I don't have the space to do it, you can cancel as long as you explain to them and you're kind to them and you inform them why and how you're feeling. It's not the end of the world and they're going to understand as long as it's not a recurring thing. Or say you were going to make yourself a really, really lovely meal, but you're just, yeah, but now you're just in the mood for cooking like a 15-minute quick meal. That's absolutely fine. And it's not about putting yourself last, but it's also about understanding some things do have to come first some days. You're going to have friends where they really need you. You're going to have family members who they really need you that day, and you have to give your all to them for that day or whatever. And you might not have much to give left to yourself, but that rest, you don't have to give it all to yourself, or you don't have to give it all to that person. And I think it is finding a happy balance of like understanding you don't have to give you all into anything. Like, and I don't know if that makes sense because it's so contradictory to probably what I've said in the past. But I think I've gotten to this space where I don't neglect myself. I do not neglect myself and the things I do and how I do them and my mindset towards everything. I wouldn't dream of putting myself last. Does that make sense? Like, I would never do something that harms myself or is a disservice. So I think I'm in a secure enough place where realistically I'm doing the bare minimum for myself. It never slips below the bare minimum. But some days I just give the bare minimum to myself or others because that's all I've got in me, and that is okay. And I think I think I've also kind of had a bit of like when we are doing well within ourselves, we almost might feel guilty not giving it to others because we're like, oh, if you see someone else struggling, you want to help them, and that's obviously just a normal human instinct. I think it's almost unfair to ourselves to be constantly giving 100%. And I suppose that's the purpose of this episode. And by giving 100% to absolutely anything, we are just going to get burnt out because we're giving ourselves no time to rest. And I also saw a couple things pop up on my feed recently about there is such a difference between literal rest and things that like active rest. Does that make sense? Like, let's say you're an athlete, right? And you work out loads and whatever, and not work out loads, oh my god. You're an athlete and you do the workouts you need to do and you have this training plan and then you just sleep. You get a really good sleep every night. As great as that is, that's not enough for your muscles. That's not enough for your body. That's not all it takes to be at top condition. You need to stretch, you need to roll out your muscles, you need to eat well, you need to make sure you're getting a regular, have a regular sleep pattern, you need to make sure you're getting fresh air. All these things go into making sure your body's in top condition because that's your job, that's your purpose. So when we give 100% and we're only, like, let's say we watch some Netflix, we watch a good movie, so that's like 2 hours, whatever, on the weekends or on the weekdays, whatever. So we're giving ourselves like 2 hours back to ourselves. That's not enough for us to recharge, for us to feel like ourselves again. And I don't think we should only expect ourselves for that to be it. And I'm not saying it is, because I know lots of people around me, they do so much more for themselves by that. But I almost want you to take that in your head and think about that, and then take that into giving your all, and like mental and physical rest. So if we are constantly giving 100%, and you could say, so when I just watch a movie by myself, I'm not giving any percent. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just doing this. That is not enough rest for that to recharge. Do you know what I mean? And I almost feel by doing activities that only take 2% of us, when we have 100% to give, or we have 10% to give, that is going to be a benefit to us, because we're allowing ourselves just to be comfortable with where we are and not feeling the constant need for pressure and push and trying our best, because it can be, not always is, and I don't think it should be, but it can be taxing, it can be exhausting sometimes. And I think if we're constantly living in this state of exhaustion and absolutely trying our best, how are we meant to live in the moment, and how are we meant to thrive, and how are we meant to go from surviving to thriving? And I think it's just like, our brains are so different to how they were like a long time ago or whatever. And it's almost like this day we live in today, our brains are put in surviving mode. They don't need to be in survival mode. Anyway, and I just think it can be so taxing, and I just don't think it's necessary to constantly give 100%. And as I said, by doing so, we're just going to exhaust ourselves. And it means we never have time to recharge. It means we never have time to check in with ourselves. And I've actually just really appreciated recently doing activities when I have 100% that takes 0%. And by doing this, I don't mean going on your phone and scrolling, because I think that can be really draining. But if you do find that recharges you, go ahead or whatever. But when I'm feeling 100%, I let myself just play my guitar, because that's something that takes like 2%. And instead of trying to, this is actually a really good example, because it's something that's unjob related. It's just like something I do for me. If I had 100% to give today, I was feeling good. Or I probably had actually no, I had about 85% to give today. And I thought, I don't want to do anything that feels too mentally taxing. And I was like, okay, what should I do? So I picked up my microphone and I recorded. But before this, I was like, I should want to do something that gets me in a good space. You know what I mean? So I picked up my guitar, and instead of learning a new song, which would have taken like 50% of me, I just played my favourite song through like 5 times. And that took 2%, because it's such a mindless activity. And it just puts me in such a good space. And that's what I mean. Like, by when we have 100%, by not giving it all and not feeling guilty when we don't. And by doing so, and by doing activities that don't take 100% from me, tomorrow I'm going to be feeling so good. You know what I mean? I'm going to have so much more to give than if I constantly am giving 24/7. And I just think that's a really important conclusion to come to, because I think it's also all part of the journey and whatnot. But I think we are almost constantly made to feel like we have to be giving 100%. And like, our brains need to know we are giving our best and we're giving it all, our all. But I don't think giving our all is a good thing constantly. I think in things where you want to, and things that, I think in times and days and weeks where we want to succeed and we want to see progress, 100% we should be giving our all, and we should be showing up for ourselves. And this does not mean like slacking off or whatever, or like not putting our all into things, but in the things that we don't need to be putting our all into, just take it down a notch. Just allow yourself to do something badly for once. And I don't think it even means that. Like, I don't think it means doing something badly, because when you're a beginner at something, it's going to be quote unquote bad. But just by doing something that comes easily to you, and something that's a rest on your brain, and something that's a rest on your physical body. And I think, like, you could say running is a really lovely activity for me. It really refreshes my soul, it recharges my soul, it feels amazing. But it does take a lot of effort. It takes a lot of physical energy. It takes a lot of mental energy. It does it does leave me feeling fabulous, and I love it, and I would not change it for the world. But it doesn't mean on a day where I have 100%, I need to give 100% into my run. Instead of doing like a really long run, like, I get like I'm in a training block at the moment for a half marathon. So I do need to give my all into my run. So that's something I've been putting my energy into, my focus into. But when I wouldn't be in a training block and I do have 100%, I could choose just to go on an easy short run, because that is something that wouldn't take a lot of energy and I'd still have like 90% left in me. And I think it's not about almost being cautious where we put it, but just understanding we don't need to be giving our all to everything we do. And I think by doing so and by allowing ourselves just to take a little step back, we can just take the pressure off ourselves. It doesn't mean that it almost means putting more pressure on ourselves, like, oh my god, I'm putting my all into everything. Like, it's not about that. And some weeks, some days, maybe some months, we will put our all into absolutely everything. But it's just about being okay with not putting our all into everything. Because I felt almost once I stopped putting my all into everything, it felt wrong. It felt like I wasn't doing enough. I felt like I wasn't enough. And I was like, by putting in our heads that we are, like, by giving 5% when we only have 5%, that's our all, we are telling ourselves, okay, we're still enough. But you are enough no matter whether you give 100% and you have 100%, or you give 2% when you have 10% or 100% or 50%. You're still enough and you're still worthy and you're still yourself, and that doesn't take away. Like, I don't think that giving your all the time like equals being a good person or equals being a successful person. And I think it's quite the opposite. And I think if you look at people, you'll find that anyone who's successful or anyone who's continue to be successful throughout their career, I'm not saying that's all linear, obviously it has up and down bits, you need to take rest and breaks. And I think taking rest and breaks comes in so many different forms, and that's something I've been understanding and learning as well. There's so many different ways to rest. And rest doesn't just mean getting a really good night's sleep. I think it maybe starts there possibly, but I think doing a really good stretch for your body is a form of rest and recovery. Going on a walk, a peaceful, calm stroll, is a form of mental recovery. Journaling is mental recovery. Eating good meals that really like nourish your body is physical recovery. And I think by doing this all at once, it's way too overwhelming. But having the knowledge that different things do different things for your body, and there's not just one way to recover your body. So by maybe not giving it all into everything you do, that's a bit of mental recovery. And I suppose it's just nurturing yourself and loving yourself and keeping yourself able to give more. And it's not about giving less into things you want to give more to. Some days that might obviously mean giving less into the things you love, but that's okay. And I think becoming it, I think there's so many layers to unpack in ourselves. But the moment we say we're only enough if we give 100%, you are enough as you are, no matter where you are and what you're doing. And I think I used to think, oh yeah, I'm enough. You know, if I'm only giving 5% and I've got 5%, I'm enough. And that was a very crucial moment in my development and my growth. But now it's almost a disservice to myself. Well, it is a disservice. So I'm like, I am enough when I give 2% and I've got 100%. I'm still enough. I'm enough if I don't do anything. And it's just freeing, and it's just a nice conclusion I've come to, I suppose. And some people might disagree, and that's completely fine. And I think it might not feel right for you at the moment, and that's also completely fine, because I think it'll mean different things to different people at different moments. But I think it's beautiful to know I can give my all into things, and I am in the mental space where giving my all is even an option at all. And I do also remind myself that on the daily. Like, it is so amazing that I get to give my all into things, and I have things that I'm so passionate about that I get to give my all to. But that doesn't mean I have to. And I think coming from maybe feeling like you're never enough to feeling like I am enough, but also now coming to a space where you're enough no matter what. You are enough by doing absolutely nothing, and you are enough by sitting on the floor and just staring into the abyss or whatever. Like, there's no limits or limitations or whatever or rules for being enough. And that's a really freeing place to get to, because it opens you up to so much mentally, physically, spiritually. And yeah, I think that's the end of the episode. It felt like I did just proper like do a whole speech for the past 20 minutes. Yeah. I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. I think it's a bit shorter than the average episode I've been doing recently. But I used to do episodes that were like averagely 20 minutes long, and then I just had more to say, so I said more. Um, but let me know what you guys think about it, and if you prefer like shorter or longer episodes, and also what you thought of the topic of today's episode, because I really do appreciate when I hear feedback. I'm sending you all so much love, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Um, and I hope the rest of the day, whether it's evening, morning, afternoon, it's all going well for you and you feel happy and content, or you're allowing yourself just to feel. I'm sending so much love to you all. Lots of love, Skye.